Brazil's Supreme Court has overturned all of former President Lula da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. On Monday, Egypt's Foreign Minister met with his Greek counterpart in Cairo to discuss bilateral deals between the two countries. This Monday, March 8th, the world celebrates International Women's Day with protests in the face of ongoing inequality, as well as recognition of the leading role of women in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Brazil, where Supreme Court Judge Edson Fachin has overturned all of former President Lula da Silva's convictions brought through Operation Lava Jato. With the Supreme Court's decision, Lula regains his political rights and will be able to participate in next year's election. The ruling comes after consecutive defeats for the Lava Jato or car wash operation, including its dismantling this year. It also comes after the revelation of messages showing that the Public Prosecutor's Office and former Judge Sergio Moro acted illegally when conducting investigations as part of the operation. And as mentioned, the Supreme Court of Brazil has dismissed all charges against former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, brought against him as part of the highly controversial Operation Car Wash. Our correspondent Brian Meir brings us more details in the following report.
The Brazilian Supreme Court has just thrown out all charges against former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, waged as part of the Lava Jato investigation. Remember, these are the charges that put Lula in jail for over 500 days and removed him from the 2018 presidential election. Leaked telegram messages show that the judge in the case, Sergio Moro, who presided over a case that was forum shopped to his city and his district regarding crimes that were never committed in the state of Paraná or the city of Curitiba, was directing the prosecutors, giving the prosecutors advice on how to convict Lula. A few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled Lula's defense team could have access to all 6 terabytes of leaked telegram conversations released by a hacker who's now facing a 300-year prison sentence. And with that, today, Supreme Court Minister Edson Fachin ruled that all charges against Lula are dropped. Lula is now a free man. He's now free to run for election in 2022. And recent polls show that in this race, in a potential race, he's leading Jair Bolsonaro by over 13%, and he has the lowest rejection rate of any potential candidate for the 2022 presidential elections. So the mood here in Brazil, among the vast majority of the people, is of relief and happiness to see that the most popular president of all times, who was unjustly and illegally thrown in jail to open the door for a neo-fascist presidency under Jair Bolsonaro, is now a free man. He's free to go where he pleases. He's free to run for office. And now history will condemn the names of Dalton Dallagnol, chief prosecutor of Lava Jato, Judge Gabriela Hart, Judge Sergio Moro, and all of the other collaborators in what a New York Times op-ed piece recently called the worst judicial scandal in Brazilian history.
Thank you, Brian. And according to a poll released on Sunday, Brazil's former president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, would surpass current far-right head of state, Jair Bolsonaro, in the 2022 elections. The poll carried out by local media measuring the support for 10 potential candidates states that 50% of those questioned would vote for Lula if he were to run again for the presidential office. Bolsonaro appears with 12 percentage points less than Lula and a disapproval rating of 56%. A former union leader and known as one of the country's most popular presidents ever, Lula was previously prevented from running again for the presidency due to the criminal charges against him, which he and his supporters have stressed were politically motivated. Bolivia's movement towards socialism has consolidated itself as the leading political force in the country, following regional elections held on Sunday. The unofficial results show that the support for the party was concentrated in 6 departments where it was already established as a major political organisation. Party leader and former President Evo Morales welcomed the results and emphasised that the movement continues to be a historic political force of the country. If this trend continues as the official results come in, the party is set to win in 5 of 9 departments and would advance to the second round of elections in 2 of them to be held on April 11th. In Colombia, a new massacre was reported in the northern state of Santander, with 5 people dead and another 5 injured. The assassinations took place in a rural zone located between Abrego and Ocaña municipalities late Saturday. The authorities have identified the victims as Wilton Prada Puentes, Elma Ortiz Ballesteros, Jose Luis Vega Plata, Jesus Alberto Vega and Robinson Garay Barbosa. Around 16 massacres have been registered in Colombia during the first 3 months of 2021. At least 30 people were killed and hundreds injured in Equatorial Guinea's commercial capital, Bata, after 4 powerful blasts hit a military camp. The death toll from the accidental explosions rose on Monday after 10 more bodies were found at the site. 600 people were injured in the blasts, which also flattened homes near the camp on the outskirts of the economic hub. According to state television, 3 children aged 3 and 4 were brought out alive and taken to hospital. A string of 4 huge explosions occurred mid-afternoon on Sunday. The president blamed the accident on stubble burning by local farmers and on negligent supervision of the camp's munitions depot. Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry met Monday with his Greek counterpart in Cairo. During the meeting, the ministers discussed the bilateral deals between the 2 countries, as well as the latest developments in the region. Last year, Egypt ratified a maritime deal setting its Mediterranean sea borders with Greece and demarcating an exclusive economic zone for oil and gas drilling rights, a move that has angered neighbouring Turkey. Iran stressed on Monday that the Yemeni population has the right to legitimately defend itself.
The sooner Saudi Arabia ends this devastating and uneven war, the faster better days will be coming for itself and the region. The Yemenis have the right to legitimately defend themselves, the only path to resolving the issue of Yemen's negotiation and a political solution. The Yemen's National Salvation Government has stressed this several times too. Saudi Arabia's problem will only be settled through stopping the war against its poorest neighbor. From the very first day of the war, Iran offered a proposal for political resolution of the matter. Today also, Iran is ready to offer the most effective help only if Saudi Arabia gets rid of the illusion of using war to resolve Yemen issue.
Pope Francis left Baghdad on Monday after 3 days of his historic tour of Iraq that sought to bring hope to the country's Christian minority with a message of coexistence, forgiveness and peace. The pontiff and his travelling delegation were seen off with a farewell ceremony at Baghdad airport, from where he left for Rome following a papal visit that covered 5 provinces across the country. At every turn of his trip, Francis urged Iraqis to embrace diversity, from Najaf in the south, where he held a historic face-to-face meeting with powerful Shiite cleric Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, to Naiveh in the north, where he met with Christian victims of the Islamic State group's terror and heard their testimonies of survival. In the United States, Minnesota residents took to the streets to call for justice for George Floyd ahead of the trial of the former Minnesota police officer charged with his death. Protesters gathered near the Hennepin County Government Center. White former police officer Derek Chauvin is facing second-degree murder and manslaughter charges. George Floyd's death sparked widespread protests in the United States and beyond against police brutality and systemic racism after the release of a video showing Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for about 9 minutes, causing his death. Chauvin's case will feature star attorneys, be held under tight security and be live-streamed. Children returned to school in the UK capital, London, for the first time in 2 months on Monday, as the government began easing coronavirus restrictions across England, while mass vaccination is underway. The resumption of classroom teaching was the first step on a path which the government hopes will see life return to normal by late June. Prime Minister Boris Johnson claimed that the reopening of schools marked a truly national effort to beat the virus. However, teachers' unions have criticised him for failing to close schools earlier and for forcing teachers back into classrooms without the necessary health and safety guarantees. The next phase of the easing of measures is due on March 29th, when outdoor gatherings will be allowed for up to 6 people or 2 households, and outdoor sports such as tennis, basketball and golf can resume. Hungarians woke up to a new round of strict lockdown measures on Monday aimed at slowing a record-breaking wave of COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths. A rapid rise in pandemic indicators since early February prompted the government to announce the new restrictions on Thursday, including the closure of most stores for 2 weeks and of kindergartens and primary schools until April 7th. Most services are also required to cease operations, and the government urged businesses to allow employees to work from home. Grocery stores, pharmacies and gas stations are allowed to remain open. Prime Minister Viktor Orban warned that the strain on the country's hospitals will soon surpass that of any other period of the pandemic, and that failing to impose tougher restrictions now would result in tragedy.
I have income and I have cost. If the first one is not higher, I can't pay rent, I can't pay salaries or social contributions, not to mention the taxes. The Prime Minister said to expect the worst and hope for the best. I am hopeful.
The Chinese city of Wuhan was the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020 and the most devastated in the country by the pandemic. However, the situation today is very different. We have more details in the following report.
Once the epicenter of COVID-19 in 2020 and the city most devastated by the pandemic in the whole China, is now a much calmer city. Its inhabitants were able to enjoy the Spring Festival in safer conditions. The city is experiencing an increase in the number of customers in practically all of its establishments, although all of the biosecurity measures are still being followed. Citizens have become accustomed to wearing masks and keeping their distance, despite the fact that no new cases of COVID-19 have been detected in months. As in the rest of the country, Wuhan has implemented a health code system based on EPIC data that analyzes travel histories and possible exposures to virus outbreaks. Nucleic acid testing for risk groups has been standardized. Wuhan was the first city in China to report cases of COVID-19 in late December 2019. The city's lockdown was a decisive step in stopping the spread of the virus in the country. During the 76 days of confinement, coronavirus patients were effectively isolated and classified. For mild cases, field hospitals were set up in gymnasiums and exhibition centers. 2 emergency hospitals with a capacity of 1,000 beds each were built within 2 weeks. The measures adopted by the Chinese government led to a reduction in the number of infections in less than 3 months.
The United Nations chose the theme for an equal future in the world of COVID-19 to mark this year's International Women's Day. For the past year, the pandemic and the resulting health crisis have led to a social and economic crisis that has hit women even harder than men. During the pandemic, women have also been on the front line and played an extraordinary role as healthcare, science and research workers and in essential services. In many cases, they've been exposed to physical and emotional violence. As the United Nations stated, the crisis has highlighted both the fundamental importance of women's contributions and the disproportionate burdens that they bear. And the United Nations championed the rights of women and girls across the world this International Women's Day as the fight against the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic continues.
We celebrate the women of the world who are leading their countries and communities through the urgent crisis caused by COVID-19. Over the past year, countries with women leaders are among those that have suffered fewer deaths and put themselves on track for recovery. Women's organizations have filled crucial gaps in the provision of services and information on the pandemic, especially at the local level. We must tackle violence against women, both online and offline, so that women's voices are no longer silenced, especially in public life. We must increase access to financing for women candidates, women's organizations and feminist movements. And we must support women leaders in all their diversity and abilities.
A Chilean feminist collective known for its anthems against gender violence showcased its latest performance aimed at addressing human rights. The performance by Las Tesis, dubbed Resistance or the Claim of a Collective Right, was presented Sunday at the Santiago a Mil International Festival, which continues through March and April. According to a statement, the new performance is a way of claiming the right to a life free from violence. In late 2019, Las Tesis performed a piece entitled The Rapist Is You that spoke against gender-based violence, bringing attention to the state's failure to protect women in Chile. The performance was mirrored worldwide by other women's collectives. In Italy, a small group of women gathered in Rome to mark International Women's Day with a protest against the increase in gender-based violence and inequality. Women shouted slogans in front of the Economy Ministry, holding signs denouncing the pay gap between men and women and the number of jobs lost in the last year, a phenomenon that has impacted women much harder than men. Various studies show that women in Italy have suffered from increased stress levels and depression as they've lost their jobs or struggled with remote working, while also being the primary caregivers for their children in a year when many schools were closed for months.
Domestic violence has increased alarmingly, and the number of femicides is an important indicator in this respect. In the first 2 months of 2021, there were 15 feminicides. In the months of the lockdown, calls to the anti-violence centers increased by as much as 119%. Above all, we do not understand why in a time of crisis, women, and not men, are always excluded from the productive world. 400,000 women have lost their jobs in the last year.
An Italian President, Sergio Mattarella, marked International Women's Day by reading out the names of 11 women killed at the hands of their partners in the first months of 2021.
It is March 8th. Sharon, Victoria, Roberta, Teodora, Sonia, Piera, Giulietta, Lydia, Clara, Deborah, Rosella. 11 women were killed in Italy in the first 2 months of this year. They were killed by the hands of who? Those who let them believe they love them. With the spread of COVID, as always happens in difficult times, it has hit harder those who are weak and exposed, women among them, especially in the workforce.
And in Greece, hundreds of people marched and rallied in central Athens on Monday to mark International Women's Day. Amidst the pandemic, women have faced increased challenges in Greece and beyond. Those present also chanted anti-racism slogans and were joined by musicians in front of the Greek parliament.
Now, this is a special march because amidst the pandemic, women found themselves in dual, difficult positions. First in their professional position and also their traditional role they have in the patriarchal system to take care of the society.
Around 300 members of labour unions working in Thailand's state enterprises marched for maternity rights on International Women's Day. Wearing fake baby bumps, they demanded 30 more days paid maternity leave on top of the 98 days that they legally have the right to now. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but we finish with images to mark the fight against gender-based violence and patriarchy on International Women's Day. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website and social media pages. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching. Bye.